For the record, my name is Brian Worrell, City Council of District 4. I am Chair of the Boston City Council's Committee on City Services and Innovation Technology. I am joined by my colleagues, Councilor Louis Jen and Council President Ed Flynn. This hearing is being recorded and live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and Fios Channel 964. Written comments may be sent to the committee email at ccc.csit@boston.gov and will be made part of the record and available to all councilors. Public testimony will be taken at the end of this hearing. If you wish to sign up for public testimony here in the chamber, please sign in on the sheet near the door. If you're looking to testify virtually, please email Shane Pack at shane.pack, which is shane.pac@boston.gov for the link, and your name will be added to the list. Today's hearing is on docket number 1474. Message in order for your approval in order to reduce the FY24 appropriation for the reserve for collective bargaining by $27,357,626 to provide funding for the Boston City Department for the FY24 increases contained within the collective bargaining agreements between the City of Boston and the International Association of Firefighters, also known as the IAFF Local 718. And docket number 1475, message in order for a supplemental appropriation order for the Boston Fire Department for FY24 in the amount of $27,357,626 to cover FY24 costs contained within the collective bargaining agreements between the City of Boston and the International Association of Firefighters, Local 718. The terms of the contract are July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024. The major provisions of this contract include base wages increases of 3%, 3%, and 2.5% to be given in July of each fiscal year of the contract term. I will now turn it over to my colleagues in order of arrival for any opening statements. Starting first with Councilor Louis Jen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the administration for being here and for your work on getting to a resolution with this collective bargaining agreement. It shows what can happen when we come around the table and try to met things out and figure things out. So happy that we are here and that we've reached a resolution. Just have a few questions regarding the agreement that was reached, and hopefully we put mechanisms in place in the future so that we don't have municipal employees working not under contract. I believe that this administration has worked incredibly well with trying to make sure that all of our expired contracts with municipal employees bring them up to date. But based on this timing next year, we're right back at the table again. So hopefully we can continue to be on time so that we don't have to have municipal employees working not under contract. So thank you to the administration and thank you to the firefighters for all of your work on behalf of our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Louis Jen. Council President Ed Flynn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the administration panel that's here. I also want to acknowledge the members of the Boston Firefighters Union, Local 718, for their professionalism during this period, in their incredible work that they've been doing as firefighters. Men and women of the Boston firefighters play a critical role in our city. I'm glad that both sides are able to come together. I am looking forward to hearing the testimony, and I'm looking forward to having more of our council colleagues here as well to be present at this meeting, because it's an important meeting. So want to encourage my colleagues to be here to engage in this conversation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council President Flynn. And we do have two letters of absences, one from Councilor Murphy and the other one from Councilor Baker. I will read both of them into the record. September 25th, 2023, dockets 1474-1475, a hearing regarding collective bargaining agreements between the City of Boston and the International Association of Firefighters, their Committee on City Services and Innovation Technology. I regret to inform you that I'm unable to attend today's hearing of the Committee on City Services and Innovation Technology, but I look forward to voting in support of this collective bargaining agreement when it comes before the full council on Wednesday. I'm fully supportive of this contract and pleased that we have reached an amicable resolution. In particular, I'd like to recognize the International Association of Firefighters, Local 718, and its president, Sam Dillion, for their persistence and good faith bargaining with the city. Our Boston firefighters are among the very finest our city has to offer, and we're grateful for their service day in and day out. They deserve just wages and benefits reached collectively, and this agreement represents just that. My staff will be in attendance at the meeting. Should any member of the committee or the public have any questions, please reach out to my office at 617-635-3115 or aaron.murphy@boston.gov. Thank you sincerely, Aaron Murphy, Boston City Council at large. And then one from Councilor Baker. Dear Chair Worrell, I regret to inform you that I will be unable to attend today's hearing on docket number 1474, order to reduce the FY24 appropriation for the Reserve for Collective Bargaining to provide funding for the Boston Fire Department for the FY23 increases contained within the collective bargaining agreements. And docket number 1475, message in order for supplemental appropriation order for the Boston Fire Department for FY24 to cover the FY24 costs contained within the collective bargaining agreements. Please know that I am in full support of this collective bargaining agreement for the Boston Fire Department and look forward to voting in favor of these dockets. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me directly if you have any questions. Sincerely, Frank Baker, Boston City Council, District 3. Just want to say thank you to the administration. Thank you to Local 718. Our city relies upon our firefighters and from protecting life and property during emergencies to providing medical support to ensuring businesses operate safely. Our firefighters regularly put their lives on the line to serve our city. And as mentioned in the letters and from our colleagues here, we do have some of the finest in the country. And as Boston works to update its labor contracts, I'm glad to see both sides come to an agreement. And I look forward to taking this opportunity to hear about the new contract provisions between the International Association of Firefighters and the City of Boston, and look forward to the discussion. From the administration, we have Jim Wilson, Budget Director, and Lou Mandarini, Senior Advisor for Labor. The floor is now yours.
Thank you, Chair Worrell, and Councilor Jen, Councilor Flynn, Councilor Coletta. My name is Jim Williamson. I'm the Budget Director here at the City of Boston. We appreciate this opportunity to provide information about the firefighter union contract and its impact on the city's budget. It's important to acknowledge the shared responsibility the City Council has jointly with the administration to safeguard and manage limited public resources in this critical role that's been entrusted to us by the people of Boston. I'm here to address the two appropriation orders before you and the transactions they represent. I'm also joined by my colleague Lou Mandarini, the Senior Advisor on the city's labor team, who will address the specifics of the language. As you read into the record, docket 1474 reduces the city's collective bargaining reserve by $27.4 million, and docket 1475 increases the fire department's FY24 budget by the same amount. The FY24 budget finalized in June 2023 included $76.2 million in aggregate to cover collective bargaining reserves. Since July 1, 2023, the City Council has passed two collective bargaining supplementals drawing on the collective bargaining reserve totaling about $572,000 for two unions, a city union and a PHC union. With this reduction of $27.4 million for the firefighters union, the new balance for the collective bargaining reserve will be $48.3 million. And with that, I will turn it over to either to Lou for an opening statement or comments.
Yeah. So thank you. Chair Worrell and Councillor Louisiane, Councillor Durkin, President Flynn, Councillor Coletta. Thanks for the opportunity to testify today. So I want to leave as much time as anyone wants for specific questions about the summary that's in front of you, but I will say from the standpoint of the administration, this is a significant achievement, closing a contract with Local 718. To the points that you made, Councillor Louisiane, we continue to dig out of a hole that we inherited when we came in between 2020 and 2021 with every contract in the city expired. The reality of that is that contracts we settled when we came in were already 2 years expired and are expiring a year later. So this is a contract that goes back to July 1 of 2021 and goes to June 30th of next year. So the reality is just practically we're going to be back at the table with Local 718 in the spring. This is something that the mayor has promised repeatedly that we hope to alleviate by trying to keep our city workers under contract as an operational imperative going forward when we have our own bargaining cycle of some 3 or 4 years, depending on the duration of the contracts we do. So, you know, with that overall statement, I will say this contract with the understanding that we would be coming back to the table in the spring. Colloquially, we would refer to as a cleanup contract. I mean, it was largely to settle wages and get people paid back for being in retro status for nearly 2 years. Not a significant amount in terms of language changes, but still nonetheless important to have settled it. And with that, I will leave as much time for questions and discussion as you'd like.
Thank you. Just want to note for the record that we also been joined by Councilor Coletta, Councilor Durkin, and Councilor Flaherty. And we'll go to questions in the order of arrival, starting with Councilor Louisiane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the administration for being here and for all your diligence. Want to again congratulate the administration and Local 718 for coming to the table and having an agreement. I think that it shows that we can work together to solve issues and making sure that we are paying our workers. I'm happy to see the pay increases. I think it's incredibly important that we pay municipal workers their just due when they give so much to the city. Just have a question in terms of, have we looked at sort of the differences and ongoing disparity between pay between sworn municipal workers and civilian municipal workers, and is there a plan to sort of figure out, like, are the increases the same, or what are we doing to address that disparity?
I will say, Councillor, it's, I mean, as we go into what will be the next round of bargaining, because we've got, you know, the contracts that we settled have now started to expire June 30th of 2023. So, you know, this next round that we do will go forward 3 years, which will enable us to sort of set our own policy. Yes, it is an issue that we are taking a look at, that, you know, workers below a certain threshold of income, you know, we're targeting the ability in our processes and haven't made final decisions yet, but workers below a certain income threshold are a primary focus of what we're doing in the next round of bargaining. I'm not hiding the ball because, you know, there are several options that we're pursuing, and you all will certainly be apprised of that in due course. But I'll suffice to say that it's a primary focus in this next round of bargaining. Civilian workers and workers below a certain income threshold.
Thank you, and I want to say thank you to Chief Lawrence because she is working with our office of our municipal low-wage earner study, so I really appreciate that. One of the things that I also have some specific language questions when you look back at the past CBA, it's the past MOA that we have, it is the 2017 to 2018 one and the 2018 to 2021. There's a section, it's section 8 that's outlining the, in section 8 where it says, Article 19, miscellaneous, section 23, maternity leave. There have been, and you mentioned advisor Mandarini, is that what I call you? Advisor Mandarini? Director Mandarini?
Sure, advisor's fine.
Lou.
Lou's good, too.
That there are some language changes that are more in line sort of with what the city wanted, with city policy. Here in Section 8, it's called maternity leave. I was wondering if there could also be a language update to just make it universal language that is parental leave, so that we are using, where possible, gender-neutral language that will help and encourage folks to take parental leave regardless if they are the mother or the father. And so just hoping we could add that as a language change if that's not something that we've added.
Glad to take a look at that, and we'll respond to you in due course.
Thank you. And then questions are in terms of what's not necessarily written out. And this is also more global for probably CBAs generally, in terms of like trying to, using them as a way to encourage or for the city to bargain or negotiate with municipal unions regarding efforts around diversity and inclusion and promotion. So does that ever happen within the umbrella of the CBA and it's just not happening now? Or is there another forum under which like those discussions happen?
I will say that that's a complex subject, but we're making a great deal of efforts to diversify the city workforce, but there are limitations that are imposed upon us as a municipality in Massachusetts that make that a challenge that we're sort of strategizing on how to handle. I mean, certainly, the hiring process under civil service, particularly, for the sworn unions. I mean, that's a situation where you have a certain pot of employees that are hired, and it is a bar to the sort of velocity of the diversification we'd like to do. But yes, I mean that. Largely, those efforts are made outside of collective bargaining, I guess, is the real fair answer to your question. So
Okay.
Things like the fire cadet program that, mimics the police cadet program that's existed for some time, largely not collective bargaining things. So.
Okay, just wondering, like the cadet program, if there are things that we learn from that can inform the CBA process or similar continued advocacy. And I don't know what the update is here in terms of making sure that firehouses have either gender neutral bathrooms or women's bathrooms. I know that's been a push. So wondering what's the proper venue for those discussions?
I would think that those would more properly be considered sort of management things that are done by the administration as opposed to things that we would bargain over.
Okay.
Although I'm sure the union would have some thoughts on it, and we're always glad to listen. But I think those are managerial prerogatives.
Okay, and then lastly, with respect to, we've had the opportunity to learn more about the gear that firefighters use and how if we were really truly investing in our fire department, we'd be able to have gear that would be more preventative, that would really address the issues of health and safety with respect to equipment. Wondering if the CBAs lend to themselves to having that discussion, or if, again, like you stated, if those are management discussions, want to make sure that folks feel protected. And, we've learned, when we go to dedications, just about things that we could have done differently and how we're investing in better protective gear. So wanted to make sure that I put that out as well.
Okay. Health and safety is very much something that could fall within the ambit of bargaining. It didn't in this particular MOA, but certainly the concerns of our firefighters and the union seeking to improve the safety and health of members is something we're always willing to listen to.
Thank you. And I just put those on the table, even though they're not part of this one. We have the summary of changes that, like you stated, we're going to be back at the bargaining table relatively within short order so perhaps things for us to make sure we are taking into consideration and getting right. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Those are my questions. And I want to thank again the administration, Local 718, and everyone for being able to come to this agreement and really make sure that we are centering the needs of all of our workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Louis Jen. Councilor Flynn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, thank you to the panel for being here. Let me ask a couple of questions somewhat related to this contract. On any, what are the updates Lou, as it relates to leave practices for people, for firefighters serving in the military. And I bring that up because I've been frustrated for a long period of time when I see cuts to veterans services, whether they're at a city department or outside in a nonprofit world or throughout the city, throughout the country. The federal government is going to shut down probably this week, will have a significant impact on veterans. That's the reason I'm asking you, what are you doing to help veterans in this contract?
In this particular contract, it's not something we touched on, but I am familiar with the work that you've done with the draft home rule petition, and both the administration and the union had a pretty good discussion last week about some of the issues that touches on, and we're going to continue to have a working group going forward, dealing with those issues. But the fair answer to your question is this contract didn't tackle that issue, but we are having a working group, and I think we certainly, from an administration standpoint, found the discussion we had fruitful last week to understand what the issues are and what the union and the advocacy groups are trying to do. And we look forward to continuing those discussions and seeing if we can make progress.
I had a good conversation a while back with Commissioner Burke on how important veterans are in city government, including on the Boston Police, on the Boston Fire Department as well. When we go forward on contract negotiations, can we also ensure that for our public safety unions, especially public safety departments, that many of them are made up of veterans, and we should recognize that their families, these military families that sacrifice greatly for our nation, should be part of the discussion in how we support them. And we're not giving them anything. They've earned a lot of these benefits, but I want to ask, will you factor and take that into consideration going forward, that veterans are also part of the discussion?
I think that's an affirmative yes. I mean, I think the way to see this is, collective bargaining is one piece of the equation, and then the other piece of the equation is actually just sitting and talking to people and solving problems, which is what we did last week and what we're going to commit to do in the working group. So I think we're about tackling all the options and all the avenues to fix things, and sometimes that's going to be through collective bargaining, and sometimes it's not. But we're committed to all of it. So the answer to your question is yes.
Thank you. My colleague that is sitting to my left has been a strong advocate over the years on CAR 5, Council of Flaherty. Certainly this contract doesn't deal with CAR 5. What's the status of that? When can we get it done?
Well, I'm going to confine myself to today to what we discussed in this round of bargaining. It didn't come up, and it was not. I think the most direct answer to your question is that that's just not something that we tackled. So I understand your advocacy, and again, we're always listening, but that's not something we discussed in this round of negotiations.
Well, let me ask my friend to your left. Jim, you're on the hot seat, Jim. We need CAR 5 in the budget next year. Can you help us get that in the budget, Jim?
Yeah, we certainly, similar to Lou's effort, we will be working with the commissioner and the staff to evaluate any proposals. So
I take that as a yes.
It's really not it's not a unilateral decision.
All right, well, that's important, Jim.
Yeah.
With Council Flaherty's been advocating that, along with other councils, for a long period of time, and that's important for public safety for residents across the city. But you will work with us to come up with a plan that hopefully we can get that in the budget. I'm not asking you to make a commitment right now, but I'm asking you to work with us because we're getting calls all day, not just from the fire department, from residents across the city about how important it is to get CAR 5. That's what's really important, is residents feel and they know that having CAR 5 improves public safety in the city of Boston. So we have to work together on that, Jim, okay? And your budget team. Mr. Chair, I have no further questions, but just want to say thank you to Lou, thank you to Jim, to the administration team, but especially I want to say thank you to the men and women of the fire department, of Local 718 for always being professional, hardworking, advocating for their members in the most professional manner. So want to thank the union for being here as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council President Flynn. Council Coletta?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you both so much for being here and for your work on this contract. I want to thank the incredible men and women of the fire department, and thank you so much to Local 718 for being here. I got that one right this time, 718. And just in general to the administration and its commitment to supporting our city workers and determination to get this contract done. So thank you for cleaning up, as you had referenced, Lou. I want to say how supportive I am of this docket and of this agreement. I am happy to see the pay increases for everybody. Everybody deserves a living wage. I'm also happy to hear that we're going to be prioritizing our lowest paid workers moving forward, and I look forward to understanding how those conversations are going and those discussions. I think one thing I wanted to uplift in this space is very similar to what Councilor Louis-Jean had mentioned, but just the fact that the jobs that we are discussing here are arguably some of the highest paid jobs in the city of Boston, and rightly so. These folks are running into burning buildings. They are superheroes among us. I'm going to also uplift the fact that a report that had come out a couple years ago said that 17 of our 1,500 firefighters are women. And I know that this is something that the fire department is working on. Local 718 is working on it. I had conversations with Sam directly on this very issue. And so I know that there is work moving forward, but it is an economic mobility issue when we are largely excluding our women from some of the highest paid positions in the city of Boston. I don't know what the administrative side looks like. There are some physical limitations to being a firefighter. I know personally, I went to their field day that they had at the Boston Common where I could not lift a certain piece of equipment, so I know how difficult it is, but I would love to understand pathways to administrative roles, chiefs, whatever that might look like moving forward. I know it's not necessarily dictated by the collective bargaining agreement, but I did want to uplift it here in this space. I guess the only other question that I have, and while we're on the topic of advocacy, is advocate for a fire station in Charlestown, which was identified as a need by our neighborhood needs analysis through the Boston Planning and Development Agency. And then just a stupid question, I guess, which is how much is now left in our collective bargaining reserves if we're taking out $27 million?
$48.3 million.
$48.3 billion, okay. And then as we pay retroactively our folks, how does that manifest in the paychecks that they're getting? Are they getting that in one lump sum? Is it coming over time? These are just things that I don't know, and I'm trying to understand the process.
Yeah, I think with the retroactive pay, it takes a while from the calculated, but they're paid in like one lump sum in the current fiscal year, and then the part of the earnings that relate to the prior fiscal years are moved into reserves that were established for that purpose at year end of those years. So.
Okay, thank you. Those are the only questions I have, but I just wanted to show my support for this agreement. Thank you so much for your work. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Council Coletta. Council Durkin?
Hi, everyone. So thankful to be here. Thank you to the chair, and proud to be the vice chair of this committee, working on some of the most important issues facing the city of Boston. Lou, obviously, it's wonderful to see you here. I wanted to celebrate this collective bargaining agreement, as we move into a stage, and I appreciate Lou's comments about making sure, being left with a lot of incomplete and expired contracts is not an easy position for the administration to be in. So appreciate their work to swiftly make sure our city workers are operating under new and recent collective bargaining agreements. Just wanted to mention that I stopped by my local Ladder 24 in Beacon Hill and met some firefighters who were extremely excited that there had been an agreement that that was created and urged me to support it. So I appreciated the local, my local ladder for urging me to support and to participate in this hearing. And we know that our firefighters, living right next to a ladder, I know that our firefighters are often the first people to respond to all sorts of things, not just fires in our city. So appreciate the work of our firefighters. And I want to just uplift, as Councillor Clutta was talking about, sort of as we talk about diversity in leadership and city jobs, it's really important for the health of our city that everyone be able to have access to good, but it sounds like there's work being done, and appreciate the work of Local 718 on that, those particular matters. And just wanted to ask a little bit more about the hazard pay bump. I have met with a lot of local union leaders who talk about hazard pay, and Lou, just wanted to direct this to you, sort of ask how that works and what how the hazard pay bump works.
So hazardous duty is something that all members of the bargaining unit get, and it comes in various forms, but it has, a lot to do with the nature of the work, and that there's this sort of infinite variety of ways that firefighters can be exposed to, hazardous or carcinogenic conditions. Aside from it applying to all firefighters, because of the nature of their work, there's not a lot more local color that I would add, but I certainly would invite our 718 members to weigh in on it if you think that would be valuable.
Absolutely. Given sort of the new contract, I wanted to ask how long it took, sort of the negotiations, and what that sort of looks like from the administration's perspective. Just to give, obviously I've been a city councilor for 5 weeks, so just interested in sort of and how this what all goes into this, and how long it took, and that sort of.
I think it's fair to say it took several months. This is one that went relatively faster than others. We ended up in a little bit of a process involving state intervention through mediation in the JLMC, but we largely did it ourselves. So I'd say 7 to 8 months of active bargaining.
Got it. Well, I want to thank the administration for paying particular attention to these collective bargaining agreements, because I think it's really important that our city and our city workers who are under union contracts to have active contracts. So as I've been, I got a couple emails urging me to support this. And I want to be very clear that, as a city councilor, I respect the administration's role in creating these collective bargaining agreements and working with local unions to make sure that we're doing everything we can to support our city workers. So just want to thank you guys for all the energy and time and partnership that went into this. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, Councilor Durkin. Councilor Flaherty?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for hosting an expedited hearing. A lot of the entire membership of 718 is almost 3 years without a contract, so expediting this, I know I can speak for all of our colleagues. We appreciate your attention to turning this around as quickly as possible after we do our due diligence, so kudos to you as the chair. And good morning to both Lou and Jim. Jim, I'll just start. Obviously, as you're aware, the increase in development across the city and the increase in population and the projected trends of population will continue to put demands on our fire, our police, our EMS, along with public works, transportation, trash collection, all of it. So keeping an eye towards that type of growth and development will be key in future budgets, and hopefully to echo my colleague, Council President Flynn, that the table of organization will include a CAR 5, and the mayor in her wisdom can be creative in terms of filling the void over it in the CAR 5 region, but also maybe we could do something on the lab side of the house. We don't really have a a lab chief. In fact, we don't have a lab chief, so, and we're down, I think, given the lab demand here in the city of Boston, which is now encroaching on our neighborhood. So having a lab chief, maybe in concert, or maybe they wear two hats. They wear a lab chief hat and a Car 5 chief hat, but I think that's not long overdue, so I'll continue to bang the pots and pans on that until my tenure expires. Want to talk, obviously, about the hazardous duty. Very welcome to see that the compensation rate will be included and be upgraded for hazardous. My colleagues had questions, I think, on working agreements. In my experience here, they're negotiated between labor and management, as Lou has described. They're not part of collective bargaining, and promotions are managed and overseen by Human Resource Department, and it's based solely on civil service rules and laws. No politics, no mayor, no union, no administration, no city council can meddle with that process. And so I will say that I did read something regarding who I consider to be the unsung heroes of the Boston Fire Department. That's the headquarters staff. And so it's my hope that we're going to come to a fair and expedited resolution for the men and women that work over at Southampton Street, and as well as at our training facility. They manage the day-to-day personnel. They deal with all the other agencies like the MBTA, Boston Water and Sewer, National Grid, Keyspan, et cetera. Our colleges, our universities, our labs. They set the standards for firefighter safety, as well as the training division that, working with 718, has put the Boston Fire Department on cutting edge of new and best practices that are emulated by fire departments across the city. So hopefully we can get back to the table or have something resolved quickly for those individuals that are real behind-the-scenes unsung heroes. And with that, I just appreciate the fact that we get another one done. This will be how many for you, Lou?
I think the technical term is a lot.
Good. And you get some more. You get some more on deck, correct?
We do well, yeah. I mean, we're still, as we said in the opening, I mean, we're still digging out of, I mean, all 48 were expired when we came in. So by the time we settled them, they were 2 years gone. We had a year to go. This next time when we settle them, we're going to have our own full bank of time, the full 3 years that Massachusetts public sector law allows you. Mm-hmm. And, the mayor has committed to try very, very hard to keep people under contract. That's a real operational imperative for the administration. She said it repeatedly. She believes it. And she has charged the team with doing it. So, it's pretty important.
Yep. And obviously, we appreciate it. Obviously, the city council appreciates that on behalf of the residents and city employees, that we kind of deal with these as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And because it's hard to believe we're going to, you guys negotiated in good faith with the union. They've already ratified it. This council now is going through this process, and through the chair will be issuing our committee report, I should say, on our next, probably most likely our next council meeting. And then to realize that you're going to have to be right back at the table with 718, 6, 7, 8 months, 9 months ish.
Yeah, I mean, probably certainly by late winter, spring. I mean, that would be our goal.
To do another round of it.
Yep.
So anything you can do, obviously, within the administration to kind of get these things on a track where, we're not really dealing. We're basically dealing with a retro. We're come to terms, we approve it, and then we get a retro, and then we're right back to the table again. If we can be, we're talking about. Colleagues have referenced working agreements and things like that. That's all stuff that takes place, away from, I guess, the bargaining table. Same with assignments and promotions that are governed by Human Resource Department and Civil Service. But to tackle some of those other issues when we're, when the clock's running out or we're already over time on a contract, it's hard to kind of. So
this was a catch-up contract. I mean, just to make people get paid. I mean, that's what it is. So
we appreciate your work ethic behind it and attention to detail, and hopefully we'll get to the table sooner rather than later. And
we don't actually ever leave the table, so we don't have to get there. We don't have to get there again. We're just there all the time. So
that's good. Just order out for sandwiches and bang these things out. But
pretty much.
Well, appreciate the work on it, Lou and Jim. And no further questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council Flaherty, and thank you for, helping making this hearing today possible by rearranging some other things to make sure that we, had this contract heard before next council meeting. I just have one question. It's kind of along the diversity lines, and it's something that we saw brought up in the other contracts was, the more flexibility around holiday scheduling. Is this already in this contract? Or is that that's something that we plan on seeing in upcoming contracts? For religious holidays?
No, well, that was not something that we arrived at in the settlement. I mean, there are things in this settlement that touch on leave and vacation and coverage and that kind of thing, but that specifically is not part of the MOA we reached.
All right, and then there was one language change when it came to shifts shall and may be covered.
Right.
Can you just speak to, what is the impact of the language change?
Yeah, so that has to do with vacation scheduling, and one of the big concepts, and actually this is a win. In some ways, this is sort of how collective bargaining should work, because it's a win for both sides. But right now, there's language in the contract right now where officers have to find their own coverage when they take leave, and it can oftentimes be a difficult situation, and it's mandated though. So actually, the change we made here not only gives some flexibility to not have to do that, but it gives the fire department the ability to sort of look at company strength and determine whether that needs to be covered, or could company strength take care of it without having to have that coverage. So rather than mandating it, it actually gives more flexibility to the union to may or may not find somebody to cover, but it also gives the department the ability to look at company strength and make the determination of whether they need someone to do that, or is the company strength strong enough that they could go without it. So that's one of the ones that actually really does nice work for both sides.
Awesome. No further questions from me. Any other councilors with any questions? All right. Well, thank you, Lou and Jim. Thank you for all your hard work on this contract.
Thank you.
And now we'll go to public testimony. We have one person signed up for public testimony, Sam Dillon from Local 718. Please state your name and any associations, and you'll have 3 minutes. Also want to say we're also joined here today by Leroy Hayward and Randy Greeley from also Local 718.
Good morning. My name is Sam Dillon. I'm the president of Boston Firefighters Local 718. Thank you for recognizing my colleagues who are here with me as well. Vice President Leroy Hayward and Randy Greeley, our senior legislative rep. I'd like to thank the City Council, particularly Committee Chair Worrell, Council President Flynn for the opportunity to address the hearing this morning. Thank you as well to Councilor Flaherty for reorganizing a very busy schedule in order to accommodate all of us here today. To the other elected officials and councilors here, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your questions and testimony on what is a very clearly important issue, not just to Local 718, but to this city as a whole. As the president of Local 718, I appear this morning to respectfully request the members of the Boston City Council to support and confirm with a vote in the affirmative the mutually agreed upon memorandum of agreement on a collective bargaining agreement between Local 718 and the City of Boston. Our nearly 1,600 members and their families have spent the past 2.5 years without an active contractual agreement. This agreement that we've reached represents nearly 1 year of hard work from both sides of the table when it comes to recognizing and respecting the invaluable commitment and services that our firefighters provide and demonstrate to the City of Boston. I personally can't say enough about the men and women of Local 718 that we are beyond privileged to represent and have working for us and have to be a part of our union. The daily services provided by the Boston Fire Department speak for themselves. Over the past several years, we've watched both the expectations and responsibilities of our firefighters greatly increase. Over the past several years, we've also continued to watch Boston firefighters rise to the occasion and answer any and all emergency services or situations that they encounter. House fires, building collapses, the global pandemic and its impact on our city, the opioid crisis, day-to-day medicals. If you name it, if you can name it, and you call 911, chances are the Boston Fire Department is going to respond. And our people do so out of an incredible call to service, an incredible dedication to believing in things that are more important for themselves. I couldn't be any prouder to represent Local 718. I couldn't be any prouder of our firefighters and what they do. And I ask all of you for your support on this agreement. I know that there were some questions in the testimony that just took place. If it's appropriate, I'm able to answer any and all questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, feel free to, you want to respond to some of the questions that were brought
If
up?
anyone, I know some of the councilors have left, if anyone has any clarifying questions for me, feel free to ask. If not,
Anyone have any questions? One? Councilor Coletta?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for making yourself available, Sam.
Thank you, Councilor.
Just for folks listening in at home or for the record, can you talk about, and I know that this is totally separate from the collective bargaining agreement that we're talking about, but can you just talk about some of the efforts to diversify the fire department, particularly as it relates to women, and what the numbers look like right now within the department?
So specifically to your question, that does fall outside the scope of collective bargaining. On that topic, though, I have no problem taking any questions. Diversity is very important to the fire department. Diversity is very important to Local 718. I'm not going to say that we're restricted in any way by any processes. What it comes down to is, you and I have had very productive conversations about this, is the nature of the work that we perform. There are standards that are in place, and that's not to say that certain people can't meet any type of standard, because I watch them do it every single day. These standards are immovable based on the nature of our profession, because the nature of our profession is life or death. And on behalf of Local 718, welcome any person out there, male, female, any other distinguishing, qualifying factor that they represent. I welcome and encourage them to undertake the challenge of trying to become a Boston firefighter. And if that's something that they want to do, and if that's a standard that they can meet, I promise you right here and now, Local 718 will bring them in, and we will represent them to the very fullest, like we do all of our members right now.
Thank you.
Council President Flynn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you again, Sam, and to Randy, and to Leroy as well. My question, Sam, is a Boston firefighter that may have worked 30 years, retiring, has been exposed to all kinds of environmental issues, toxic issues in the firehouse, at fires. What are you hearing from retired firefighters after a life of dedicated service to the city of Boston, to the residents of Boston, but in terms of their health, what is happening, and what's the Boston Fire Department thinking about doing as we go forward?
I can't speak for the department. I could speak for the union, which is to say that we are in the process of aggressively tackling these issues. We've had great conversations with our commissioner and with the fire department about that. We're in the final stages right now of putting together an aggressive, in-depth occupational hazards study that all of our active members and retired members are going to have access to this and be encouraged to participate. I think the biggest thing, not just for our retired members, and I'll say this as an active member, we're tired of looking over our shoulder. On average, once every 3 weeks, a Boston firefighter is diagnosed with occupational cancer, whether that be active or retired. I think you'd be very hard-pressed to find any other profession in this city or elsewhere that's dealing with occupational hazards and occupational cancers to that extreme. That's outside the scope of collective bargaining, because that to me isn't a wage or workplace condition. That's about doing the right thing. And by virtue of taking this job, by virtue of serving the city the way that we do, I'm not going to live as long as I otherwise would have. Our retired members are not going to enjoy a lengthy retirement compared to other professions. That's a sacrifice that we proudly take on. That's a sacrifice that I would ask the city and our elected officials to take on our behalf to confront these issues. This is a very dangerous job, and we embrace that. But what we've learned over just the past couple of years, there's other contributing factors that we were never aware of. Now, a burning building is dangerous, we know that. Exposure to carcinogens at a fire, we've known about that. We're just now learning the depths to which our own gear and our own firehouses have contributed to that. And that's something that outside of contracts, that's taking it on through legislative action, and I appreciate the support both of you have always shown to us. Like I said, we're tired of looking over our shoulder. It's time to take that head on.
Thank you, Sam. And my final point, and want to acknowledge my colleague, Councilor Flaherty. I know he's leaving the body soon, but those are the issues that you've championed, Michael. And really, Michael, you championed that, and you learned from your father, who was really the elected official across Massachusetts that did so much for firefighters up at the State House getting legislation passed. So I want to say thank you to Michael's dad that did a tremendous job advocating for firemen and firefighters and their families. Mr. Chair, I have no further comment.
Thank you, Council President Flynn. Thank you to the administration. Thank you to Local 718 for all your work and Docket. And thank you to Central staff, Shane Pack, Arnita, Ethan, Candace, man, who am I missing? Cora, Shane. Who am I missing? Am I missing anyone else? Oh, I said Arnita. All right, I feel like I'm missing someone else. Ron, thank you to the whole Central staff, and thank you to all who's listening in. Docket number 1474 and docket number 1475. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Councilor.